If your Microsoft 365 tenant feels like it's on a never-ending episode of Hoarders, the Digital Edition, you are not alone, and you have come to the right place. Teams get created, sites pile up, projects end, but the content lives forever. And that's where storage piles up, governance headaches start, and the Copilot noise just starts creeping in. In this quick video, I'm going to show you how Orchestry helps you get control of Microsoft 365 content sprawl using lifecycle management capabilities without deleting anything and without turning cleanup into trauma. Here's the reality of what we see the most in Microsoft 365. Content is created fast, teams and sites are easy to spin up, but very few organizations have a clean, consistent way to deal with what happens after the work is done. Inactive teams and sites just sit there. They're taking up storage, they show up in search, and now with Copilot, they're becoming part of the AI conversation, whether they should be or not. Some organizations try to avoid this by exporting content elsewhere or just keep paying for storage. And they rely on these one-off cleanup routines, projects, scripts, spreadsheets, living in panic mode until the next limit is hit. None of that is proactive and none of it scales. This is where archiving becomes the smart middle ground. With Archive, deletion isn't the goal, it's control. You can move your inactive Teams and SharePoint content out of active collaboration while still keeping it available for compliance, for reference, and for future access. This gives you a few big wins right away. You reduce your reliance on emergency cleanup activities, you make your storage growth more predictable, and you send a clearer signal to your employees and Copilot of what content is actually relevant and active. And I love that Orchestry's approach to Archive is admin-friendly, it's user-friendly, and it's intentional. With reporting, we can see right away what content is active and likely ready to be archived. This means we'll have less manual effort, fewer scripts and spreadsheets, and way fewer promises to clean it up later, even though we know later will never happen. As organizations are preparing for Copilot and AI, this is going to matter more and more. Reducing rot, redundant, outdated, and trivial content in active collaboration spaces helps cut down on noise for users, for Copilot, and for search. I'm going to show you how archiving works inside of Orchestry. I'm going to show you a quick example of how archiving works inside of Orchestry. But the takeaway is this. Archiving isn't about deleting everything, and it's not about locking content away. It's about keeping M365 usable, predictable, and ready for what's next. I'm going to click on my favorite policy to demo right off the bat. You can see this is pretty intuitive. We're going to pick the type of workspace that we're creating our archive policy for. Great thing about Orchestry, you have options. You can decide inside of your organization what archive means to you, and you can also decide what it means for your different types of teams and workspaces and your employee groups, your teams, your departments, your projects. Our options inside of Orchestry, archive in place by default, nothing gets deleted. Content stays inside of SharePoint, it stays within the teams, but we can pull it away from enterprise search, from Copilot. We can pull it away from the muscle memory of people going there to work on it. Basically, what I like to say is we put it to bed. You can move to SharePoint archive. This is where we define an archive location, and you can have many inside of your environment. Orchestry will go in, work with the components of Microsoft 365, delete the team, the group, the site. They all go to the recycle bin, but it grabs the content, bundles it up in a nice tidy little folder, and uploads it into the document library you choose on the archive site you choose. So you're keeping your content, right? It's not going away. This is great for those compliance scenarios. We also have the capability for you to utilize your M365 Archive subscription right inside of Orchestry. One-stop shopping. One of our primary goals of Orchestry is to reduce the number of admin centers you have to visit any given day. So we can absolutely help you with that here. And then, of course, you can choose to delete it if it's appropriate. And if we know from the owners, the users, those data managers, this stuff can just go away. Yeah, it can just go away. I am going to show you very briefly the magic of Archive in place. If Archive is a new and scary term for your organization, again, by default, we're not deleting anything. And you're like, well, that's not going to help my storage story much. And if you're thinking, well, that's not going to help storage much, just wait. We can make sure our intra Azure knows that that group is archived. It's not an active group. We can make sure your chat in Teams gets preserved. And we have options to set the site to read only, to remove the site from search and Copilot processing. Basically, we're using restricted search as an option here. We could also come down to security options, change the permissions of this site, because we know if users don't have permission to something, search won't return the results. Copilot won't use it for them for grounding content, right? But it's not helping your storage. Au contraire, you can choose as part of your in-place archive to look at your document libraries and maybe just archive the most current version that's published out there that people have been referencing. If that's not enough, you could archive all the major versions. So if you're a little bit more mature in your version management inside of SharePoint, you're using drafts, major and minor versions, you can tell Orchestry, hey, when we're going through here, let's prune off all of those drafts, the things that were never published, were never used for reference by the employees of the organization, the members of the team and site. That, my friends, is going to significantly free up storage for you as you start applying that broadly inside of your organization. So much of our storage is tied up in versions. If we were moving to SharePoint Archive and the site was actually going to go away, what we would do is we would bundle those lists up in Excel spreadsheets, put them in that archive package. So don't worry. If we were moving to SharePoint Archive, your list data would be preserved. And we can also choose to archive all versions or maybe just the most current version of your pages. If you need your page history, we got you. If you don't, we got you. Clean it up, pull it out of the gal, remove it from the Exchange client, right? We could go do these actions to really tidy things up from the user perspective. Security. This is what I mentioned a minute ago. Maybe we don't want to hide it from enterprise search. We need a service account or a group of folks that still have access. But the main owners, members, definitely those guests, don't need permission to it. It shouldn't show up in search. It shouldn't be used by Copilot. Pull their permissions away. I don't have to worry about that anymore. Now, if we're going to do that, I highly, highly, highly recommend that we extract the permissions configuration so we don't have to guess who is part of the site later, should we need to maybe rehydrate it. These are just some examples of ways we can archive content inside of Orchestry. Whichever policy you go to, you have the option for how little or how much approval you need for specific types of workspaces before they can be archived. You can choose who you reach out to get that approval. Please, please, please let them know what it means, right? We don't need to operate on fear and panic. We can decide how often we're going to go tap on the door and ask if that can be archived. You can give them options on how that can be renewed for what period of time. And we have escalation paths. We've tried to think of a variety of scenarios organizations can run into and bring that to you here. So truly, you can decide what archive means to you and how you can accomplish those activities. Well, thanks for joining me for this feature spotlight all about Orchestry archivals. Key takeaway, archive isn't about deleting everything or locking content away. It's about keeping Microsoft 365 usable, predictable, and ready for what's next. If you already have Orchestry and you haven't started using the archiving capabilities yet, please get in touch. I'd be happy to walk you through how the different scenarios could help you in your organization. And if you're just now exploring Orchestry, this is a great example of how governance can actually help make your life easier.